When I tell you, I cooked the hell of a dinner, bro. I cooked the dinner.
Okay, well, they need to bring themselves on.
Bring
I
the
won't be
plate
the
and,
only lady.
eat while we talking. Yeah. Let's go in the barber shop. You do all kind of strange things in the barber shop.
Yeah.
And Chef Irie has a fact. But since we're live, I want to welcome everybody out there to the bridge. This is another episode. Yes, we're starting out a little bit late. That is because of yours truly over here had a second. I needed a few minutes. But tonight we are going to talk about America's greatest fear, right? The power of a Black woman. And you can agree or disagree, but I think by the end of this show, you're gonna be enlightened, and we got a whole lot of evidence to support this one. Trust me, fellas, I know what you're saying, because as a Black man, I'm like, nah, they really fear me. They do. But trust, I'm not gonna drop all the things. And we're gonna have some special guests on the show. I'm gonna introduce everybody's here. We have two more guests coming right now. Do the introductions, and I'll fill you in. We're gonna jump right back into what we were talking about offline, because you gotta hear it, man. So first up, as always, is our producer extraordinaire, Mr. James Howard. He keeps us right. He gets us going every single Tuesday. He's the one that provides you with the graphics, the audio, the visual, all of that stuff. And sometimes he even mutes our mics like any good commentator should do. Then going down. Sorry, I'm throwing shots at the moderators. Then going down, we have Mr. Moneywise, Rashad Henderson himself. He is our resident money guy, but he's also like our facts guy. Like, just out the blue, he's gonna give you about 10, 20 random facts. You know, in every barbershop, there's always one of them. And you'd be like, nigga, you don't know that. But apparently he does and tends to be good with it. Coming up next, we have Chef Irie, who is our Mr. Wisdom. Irie is the guy that brings balance to the whole crew. Okay. Irie is gonna give you the perspective that you need to get through in life. So you gotta understand that's why he's called Mr. Wisdom. Myself, Chad Cherry. I'm your host. I try to keep everybody on track. Doesn't always work. Sometimes I fall off track, but that's why I'm not a professional at this. I'm a chef. And our guests tonight, we have three right now. One is with us because other people are working on CPT time, and if you don't know what that is, I ain't explaining it to you. But we have Miss Bridgette Baker in the building. I will not steal your shine. Bridgette, please take as much time as you need to tell the audience who you are, your credentials, because you have many of them.
Nah, man, don't set me up like that.
You do. Straight. You got them.
Well, I appreciate it, and thanks for the invite to the barbershop conversation. So I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation. But as you mentioned, my name is Bridgette Baker. I'm the president of PBCI, and we specialize in small business training, consulting, and networking. Our target clients are small startup clients all the way to 50 employees. And we focus on operational strategy and structure for small businesses. So we assist with your infrastructure, assist with preparing to get funding and grants. We also do a bit of marketing, so website building, etc. And a host of support services for the average small business owner, so that they're prepared for whatever's coming down the pike and whatever they're pursuing. And we've been actually producing some webinars for a couple years now too. So that's a service that we added to the repertoire. But that's it, man. I'm just someone who likes to help. And I've been able to channel some of the experience I've had and some of the knowledge I gained while I was in the corporate sphere, and be able to channel that for our small business and solopreneurs to help them get ahead. And that's it. That's my passion. My passion is just helping folks. So that's where Chad Cherry and Karen Cherry and I intersect. We love to help folks.
We do. And we've been close with Bridgette now for, I gotta say, the better part of 6-7 years. And she's always been phenomenal. One of those people you can always count on. And that is very rare to say in life. Y'all know what we talk about. Our other two guests, which will be joining shortly, are none other than my wife, Karen Pandy Cherry, and my daughter, Kirsten, right? The reason why, and it's not just nepotism that I have them on, people. Don't look at me funny through your screens. I know what y'all thinking. It's more than nepotism. If Trump can do it, I can do it, right?
Damn right.
Basically. No, but
good, baby.
so keep it. I'm gonna let them tell their stories. My wife is one of the main people in my life, and this goes back to the convo we were just having, who for the past few years has taken great strides to educate me to break out of the patriarchy and the misogyny that I grew up with, like just straight learned behavior. Like I was taught the dudes just do certain things, and we were talking about it earlier. We were saying how like I was telling the fellas, and this is sharing a lot. I was like, hey, we have to intentionally make space for our ladies tonight because a lot of women don't take space in the rooms because learned behavior, right? And guys on the flip side were always taught to come in and be rah rah and loud. And that's what barbershop talks about. We just talk all over each other. Ain't no order to this thing. But I told the fellas that we have to intentionally work on that. And James said something hilarious. I don't know if he's gonna repeat it. And then Reject gave us some insight. And if y'all want to repeat, if y'all want to jump in, go ahead, because I think that was a great combo. I mean,
well, I don't have no problem saying it. I say it aloud every day. that I have male chauvinist tendencies. So at the end of the day, I'll tell you I'm a male chauvinist. Hold on, let me let Karen in the room so she can jump on my back too.
Yeah, sure she will.
She coming.
But is it that most of us grew up that way, and I guess we evolved over time, I guess, based on our interactions with either the women in our lives, i.e. relationships, or the matriarchs of family, your mom, that start to set you straight, when you start developing, i.e. bad habits, what have you. Because when you're hanging out with the fellows, and especially growing up, I was always playing basketball, this, that, and the other. I went to an all boys school, so I'm sure I had some serious traits that I needed to curb.
Yo, well, I mean, you think about it, right? Go ahead, James.
Well, I agree with you because I say I'm old fashioned, so that's where the root of it comes from. Not that I can't listen and understand your point, but I have the old fashioned mentality.
Break that down, James. What do you mean? Yeah. What do you mean by old fashioned?
Well, I believe the man is the head of the household. We are here to provide. We are here to give structure to things. Not that I'm not saying that a woman cannot give the structure, but that's my beliefs is a man is here to do it first. But if a woman can lead, she can lead. I have no problem with that. But I still believe if a man can do it, he need to step up and do it.
See, I don't think that's chauvinistic. I don't think that's patriarchal or anything, right? Like, understand, I think there is a structure, like, in my household, I make the final decision. But that does not, with making that decision comes a serious responsibility, right? Like, I have to listen to my wife, to my daughters.
I'm sorry, Chad. I didn't want to interrupt you, but
I just hold on.
I just saw her eyebrow twitch over there.
You saw it too, right? I saw it too when he said that. I'm like, look at Karen eye twitch.
That eyebrow. Maybe it was a gut reaction. It might have been my screen. It might have been like sometimes my screen glitch up and stuff happen. Go ahead, man. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think that it's a balance. It's like, I was saying before we came live, is that for me, I'm attracted to men who have a slight chauvinistic tendencies, because it to me it's a certain sense of traditionalism, and in certain aspects of the way I like my life, there's certain traditional things that I can appreciate between the roles of men and women. But what I think what the difference is understanding that when you were growing up, whether you had a mom and a dad in the household, or you had a male figure in your life, or wherever you got those rules of what men are and what men do, you weren't privy to the other half of the equation, where the interaction between that man and your mom, or you didn't see the relationship. You saw parental figures, and so you were just getting part of the story. And I think that's what's happened with a lot of men. They see part of the story and they take those cues of roles, and then they just run with it until then they come into relationships of their own, and they
Yeah.
understand the dynamic between men and women is better served when you do have better communication and understand that we all have needs, and we should all be able to talk to each other. I shouldn't have to be living up to your expectation of what the role is, and vice versa. You know what I mean?
No, I know
And
exactly what you mean, but that's why I was. Go ahead, babe.
hi everyone. I'm so sorry that we're late. We are here. This entire show is about Black women and the power of Black women. So it's our prerogative to be late, and y'all can say nothing about it. So zip it. That being said, my eye didn't really twitch when Chad said that. I mean, I know, like, in our relationship, like, honestly, I'm the one who's very vocal in terms of, when I don't like something or when I think something is not going the way that it should. I'm also much more regimented than Chad is. My responsibility is to really help us to move forward in the way that we decide as a couple we should move forward. But what people don't see behind closed doors, like, my power is solid. And I know that. I could walk into any room, and if I want the attention in that room, I will take it. If I feel like I want it, I will have it. And I don't have any qualms about that. But what people don't see is that behind the door, like when the door closes, my husband has a way of saying my name. If he says my name, then I know I'm like, back up a little bit, ease off a little bit, because, like, I know, like, our relationship is less traditional in that he recognizes my power and allows me to have that and hold that, but it is still traditional to where if my husband could not say my name with bass in his voice that made me straighten up just a little bit, I don't want him, because I would run
Exactly.
all over a man who, you know what I'm saying? I'd run all over a man who couldn't do that. So
Right. So we don't mind the challenge. It's just that line, that respect. In
Mhm.
order for you to have that relationship with your husband where you can acquiesce to him, there has to be that respect. It has to be there. I mean, as women, a lot of us, we want to be able to do that. We want to be able, we don't want the responsibility of being the leader in the relationship all the time. It has to be a balance. And if I can't trust you to respect me, then I can't let the guard down enough for you to lead me. There has to
mhm.
be
Yeah,
respect there. You know what I mean?
this is
I'm
this is so
I'm
dope.
gonna ask that question. So what about what do you say to the women who say, well, I don't need a man, or I don't want a man, or they have that.
Yeah.
More power to them.
Yeah. I mean, it is everyone. I think we get too far into the place where we try to dictate what other people want. And if you are a woman who does not feel that you need a man or want a man, more power to you. I don't feel like any woman should be put in a box. What I will say, though, is for me personally, as powerful as I am, as much as I bring to the table, there is something that was unlocked when Chad and I came together. There is something that continues to be unlocked the more that we know each other. There is a height, and there's a height and just things that we will accomplish together that I know I would not accomplish alone. There's just And then for our kids as well, for our daughters as well, to be able to see a father figure who teaches them what it is to own their own power. I think like I think it's important.
I got one question for you, Karen.
Yeah.
What is it you be doing that you need to hear that?
That I need to what?
I said, what is it that you be doing that you need to hear that bass?
Oh.
What what track did you fall off on that you need to be realigned?
Well,
Don't tell him. Don't tell him. Don't tell him. No, we don't give the keys to the kingdom. Don't tell him.
But the thing is, they have all been around at times when Chad has done it. They just don't
Realize that he's done it.
Right.
Y'all just don't realize that he's done it. I mean, and I will say this, like sometimes, so I wrote this piece a long time ago, and I found it in my journal, and it was talking about how my husband tethers me to the earth and to reality, right? And what I mean by that is that I think as women, we're visionaries, right? Like we're visionaries and we're organizers. And I think it's a part of our power. And there are times in life where I will just like, I think the genius and the power sometimes kind of gets away from me, where I'm like, Bridget, like you're in a lot of stuff, you're doing a lot of stuff, you're trying to keep everything straight, the kids, the business, yourself, your marriage, your friends, your parents, and there's sometimes when it just gets out of hand, and I feel like I'm getting, like your agitation level is just kind of like climbing and climbing and climbing, and I get to this place where I'm a little frenzied. Not saying that it happens to all women, but it definitely happens to me. And sometimes my husband he'll either use the bass if he feels like that's what's necessary at that time, like if he needs to stop me in my tracks. Sometimes he'll be the person that like I go off on and yell at, and then he'll just let me do that. Like there are different ways that I think he tethers me so that I don't end up just like floating off into the
Yeah, but you see, but it comes back to that respect factor, right? So just like you were saying, he was able to put you in check and no one can tell. There's no bravado there. There's no much of trying to put your woman in check and all of that. And the thing about it is that she probably needed to be put in check at that moment, but if you would have handled it differently and been all macho with it, it could not be received.
Yeah, you're perfect. Yes, perfect, Bridget, because yes, I needed it in my heart and in my mind. I knew I needed it. He will not only not use bravado, he has in the past, like, let's say that I do something, let's say that I like step on a relationship. In like my frenzy, I snap at somebody, or I'm like in me trying to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish, it may not have whatever I'm trying to say may not have come out how I wanted to say. He's not only not been like shown bravado, he has also taken the blame for what I did on himself. So he'll be like, oh yeah, my bad, I'm so sorry, that such and such happened, don't worry, we'll fix it. So he has taken the responsibility on himself, which is sometimes what I need. Like, I know this conversation is about like the power of women, and Kirsten's going to talk at some point, from the standpoint of like not being married or whatever. But I think one of the things, going back to your question, Rashad, about women who say that they don't want a man or that they don't need a man, like the intensity and power. Let me not generalize. My intensity and power needs rest sometimes. Like I can't carry it all the time. If I had to carry it all the time, I just, yeah, Kirsten said we'd all be in trouble. Yeah, if I had to carry it all the time, like I don't know where I would be mentally. I think mental health, mental wellness is a big conversation, not just for Black women, but for the Black community, but for Black women specifically. So it's important for, I think men's roles should be different. Um,
Yeah.
some other things that would help us to maintain our power. But when I need to set my power down, I can give it to my husband, and I know he's not going to abuse it. And when I want it back, he's going to give it back. If that makes sense.
Abuse of power.
That's that that I was reading an article in Ebony last year, and on a webinar with NCBW earlier this year, they talked about it, but it's called the strong Black woman syndrome, right? That trope where
You're reading my mind, Bridget. I
yeah, where
wanted to
we
talk
just
about this. You're reading my
we
mind.
just shoulder it all, and this idea that as Black women we should just be all things to all people, you know, wanting and support for everyone but ourselves, kind of thing. And just the fact that trope in itself is a part of sexism, is a part of racism and misogyny. It's all wrapped up in that. And I think that now we're starting to understand that, yes, you know, the idea of being a strong person in general is a plus, but that concept that we should just shoulder it all, you know, it's so damaging in so many different ways. There was on Michelle Obama's podcast a couple months ago, Michelle Norris was on it, and I wrote down this quote that she said. She said that the strong Black woman trope is a cement necklace that's supposed to feel like pearls. And that's exactly, I mean, that's so perfectly describes the role that Black women have to play all the time, you know, incessantly.
And as you say that, though, since our topic is America's fear, I think we have actually done the perfect setup for the topic, because we all know that you attack things that you fear. You know what I'm saying? So that strong Black woman trope is not a compliment. It's actually an attack, right? And if you notice how many different ways they attack Black women, that shows you how much they fear. Like I said, it is America's greatest fear. And I just wanted to interject because I want people to know we are on topic. But just like in college, right? You can't just jump into to chemistry. You know what I'm saying? You gotta take some prereqs, right? This part of the conversations are prerequisites. You know what I'm saying? And later on, we're definitely going to delve into, we're going to talk about the Kamala situation with the vice presidential debate. We're going to talk about what happened with, you know, some of the stuff with Breonna Taylor and what's going on in Louisville. Jump in there.
I'm gonna before you move on, like I wanted to extend on what Bridget said, and because I don't want anybody who's watching to misunderstand.
I wasn't moving on. I was just laying a foundation. I wanted them to understand why we were going through this. Yeah, no. So please feel free.
So let me
I just want people to know that if you're watching,
yeah, let me add on then. I want people to understand what you said, Bridget, because I feel like it's so very important. And you know, I always use myself as an example, because talking philosophically, I don't think is helpful to anyone. I think if we can give personal examples about different things, then maybe people can apply it to their lives and we can, you know, get more from it. But that whole you know, strong Black woman and everything like that is so harmful and so damaging. And I started, I had the opportunity to get a like an executive coach, and we were doing coaching sessions a couple months back. And when it's all I was the only Black woman in this group. And I remember when I started the coaching sessions, you know, out of 10, 12 women, I'm the only Black woman. So of course, I'm like, okay, well, I'm in this environment where it's like all executive level women. I need to be, you know what I mean, this certain way in order to, you have those things in the back of your mind. Like, I gotta speak well, I gotta carry myself well, I gotta always make sure my hair is done and my makeup, to show that I belong in this space. And as we started talking during the coaching sessions, the coach was talking about, you know, letting things go, setting, like, you got to be able to take time for yourself. You got to be able to set things down, whatever's stressing you out. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to set those things aside so that you can have time for you. And I didn't intend to break down on the session, but I just started bawling, completely lost it. I mean, this was in the middle of the pandemic. We were in the beginning of the racial uprising. I was worried about my husband getting sick. I was worried about us going out and just cops and just all of these things that we carry. My health, the health of my kids, my family. And when she was saying set it down,
How do we
I
do
was
that?
how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I, as a Black woman, set down all of these things that I'm carrying, all of these people that we're responsible for? And after that breakdown, I mean, I probably bawled for like 25 minutes. And after bawling for 25 minutes, I felt terrible. I hung up, I got off the call, I felt horrible. And what I started to realize in talking to Chad, which is why I feel like that dynamic is really important. If I didn't have him and I was a Black woman who didn't have a spouse or didn't have a spouse that was supportive, I think maybe finding other Black women, but if you are finding other Black women and they're going through the exact same thing, then helping each other out of that is, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But Chad ended up calling our therapist, and he made an appointment, and we went and we talked to our therapist. And in talking to the therapist, I started to sort of release and let things go out of necessity. But it is what you're saying about that strong Black woman, and um, that the things that we carry, not because we want to, but because we need to. Somebody dropped it, I got to pick it up.
Right.
What am I going to do? Leave it there? I can't just leave it there. I can't just let it drop. And then once you've picked it up and you've been carrying all of these things, how do you then let it go? And in the past couple of weeks, one of the things that I found out of necessity is really taking self-care, but not in sort of the bougie way, just taking self-care in, I went back to the things I started thinking about, and this is one of the things that the coach helped me with, is thinking about the things that used to make me happy as a kid. And I love dancing. I love riding my bike. I used to love climbing trees. So in the past couple of weeks, I've danced every time I thought about dancing. I've ridden my bike every time I think about riding my bike, every time I have a second, even if it's just around the circle in our community for 10 minutes. And I've climbed trees, even though I've been afraid of climbing trees. And like doing those things, getting back to basics, has allowed me to kind of like, okay, breathe a little bit.
I mean, I think that part of the fear and part of the reason that they hate us so much is that deep down they're jealous. They're jealous of the fact that we've had none of the privileges, okay? But we still find ways. We still find ways to move forward. We still find ways to thrive. We still find ways to raise fantastic children and find joy. Like, we have all of these adversities, and we continue to find a way. And it's not been pleasant. It's not like we wanted it that way, but the fact that we continue to just find ways to excel. The fact that Black women are now the highest educated ethnic group
Yes.
in the country,
And the
and it's been
fastest
that
growing
trend has
member
been there.
Yeah, the
almost 10
fastest
years.
growing number of small business owners as
Right.
well.
We make up 59% of the small of Black owned businesses. And we're every single year since 2009, we've been the largest group that starts new businesses. So I think there's a lot to unpack of why they hate us. But I think that deep down inside, I mean, we work with nothing and somehow we create magic. And that's something to hate on, I mean, the fact that Black don't crack, our hair is wondrous, and I just think that in general, they look at us with a sense of trying to strip down our humanity so much because they recognize that there's something special there. They recognize that no matter how hard all of these chips are stacked against us, we're not going anywhere. And as a matter of fact, we just keep getting better. The more and more we open ourselves up to new ways of looking at things and being able to shed the traditions and the psychology that's held us back, the more and more we embrace the fact that our economy is important and that we should control more of it.
Practical.
Right. The more steps we take forward, it's terrifying for them.
Well, hold on, ladies. I want to add something right now. I'm gonna allow the fact checker to talk.
Okay.
Yay.
Oh, come on now.
Go ahead, unmute your mic.
So, hello everyone.
Can we see you too?
Nah, that's
No,
not
Hello?
happening.
that's
We
not
can only
happening.
hear
That's not happening. No, that's not happening yet. So what happened was in my previous career, I had the privilege of taking a class from this world-renowned. He is he's a social worker, but he's also what they call a behavioralist. He studies population and he studies child welfare populations around the world. And what he gave us was in this training was for many cultures of color who've gone through adversity. We all understand how biology and genetics work at the base. Now, I'm not talking about anything higher level, and how you can pass on a gene from one generation to another generation. And how many of us have heard that about Black people, and especially Black women, that there's just something about you that's just innate. There's something about you that's just there. So his study, which he was trying to further, was that over the years and centuries that our ancestors have endured this, we've endured brutality, we've endured the strength that we all talk about, our Black don't crack, all of those things, that it has become something that's coded in our DNA. So the reason why that we can endure, the reason why we have the strength to continue on, and that we can raise good children despite all the adversities that we've seen, is because it's something that's encoded in our DNA. So I think I don't think for other ethnic groups and other races of people that they understand, because they haven't had to deal with some of the things that we've had to deal with, and smile and continue to endure and to try to raise another generation to have hope in the world. So that's just my input. So our strength also comes from being able to stand in the face of everything and raise children that continue to have hope in the world.
So that's phenomenal that you said that, because I know a lot of fellas out there like, wait a minute, as a Black man, we have to be the greatest fear. And I'd like to argue against that based off of something I just read that made a lot of sense. They were saying in this article, they said, here's the thing, right? Well, Black men, they already got a plan for us. They're going to lock us up. They just going to straight kill us. They're going to do other stuff. They have a plan for us, but there is no plan for the Black woman, right? And not only is there no plan, anything they've ever tried to hold Black women down, it hasn't worked, right? They haven't been able to. So I wanted us to touch on that because, like I said, I love this topic, right? Because I think it's a challenging topic when we talk about fear and we're talking about psychological issues. So I want to introduce that narrative into the picture, and I want to, fellas, get your thoughts on that first. And then I want to talk about intersectionalities, because that's a great way to slide into talking about what happened with the vice presidential debate. So come on, fellas.
Hold on one second, Chad.
A little bit of space.
hold on one second. I want to interject some of the comments that are being
Oh, yeah.
said out there in Facebook
Let's
and
go.
other mediums. That's at Nicole said that black women in general are not loved properly, and we do not express it enough because we others may think it's weak of us. So we overcome the lack of proper love by being the strong black woman.
Ladies.
I can,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can feel
yeah.
that. I can feel that.
I feel that. I feel that.
But I also think that I think that what we've been taught is love may not be for everyone, and that's a totally different conversation to be had. But it goes back to that traditionalism we were talking about, fellas, where you were taught that as a man, this is how you express love. And in your household, that may look different than someone else's. But for the most part, a lot of black men were taught that, you know, vulnerability is weakness, and you know, softness is weakness, and giving your woman a little too much say so and having them have a little too much power, that's weakness.
Yeah.
But you're when you get older, you come to find that, you know, there are ways to express love differently for everybody. We'll get into love languages some other time, but yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
like my father, right? As amazing as my dad was, my dad raised me to think that. So my dad and my grandfather, their thing to me when I was younger is you don't need a man. You don't you don't need a man to do anything for you. You'll be able to do everything for yourself. I learned how to shoot. I learned how, like I if there was sand that needed to be shoveled in the yard, I was out there shoveling sand. I've laid the foundation on houses and laid tile and all of that stuff. I fixed my own cars. Like my dad's thing was, you know, you need to be able to do all for yourself, which I appreciate on the one hand. But he also used to say things like put water in your wine, right? The reason why women can't, the reason why it's hard for women to move ahead and to be able to survive in business is because they're too emotional. You don't want to be too emotional. And so growing up, I enjoyed the fact that I was a woman, because obviously there are things that you can use as a woman that you can't, you know, that men don't have access to. But I really also enjoyed thinking like a man, because in my mind, that was me having the best of both worlds, right? Being able to use my feminine wiles when I wanted to, be feminine when I wanted to, but think like a man, which meant I was strong, right? There was no weakness in me. I think logically. I don't think, you know, emotionally. And now I recognize that the balance is where the balance is where the sweet spot lies. You know what I'm saying? That there's a lot of weakness in men, like the generalization that is men, and there are some weaknesses in women, right? And it's how we look at weakness as well, because women really are incredibly strong. When I think about women in this country and in this world who endure being the smarter one, being the wiser one, the more organized one, the one that has the plan, I think one of the most challenging things for me in our relationship, one of the most challenging things for me in the beginning of our relationship was having to sit back and wait for my husband to get what I already got so that we could move forward.
You make it sound like I'm slow.
Hey, listen, I
Hey, hey.
Said the tortoise to the hare.
Tortoise to the hare. So I have a question.
People are different speeds.
So I have a question though.
I got 20 years of experience.
Good Lord. So I have a question. So is a woman considered strong if she doesn't do any of that stuff that you mentioned for herself? She can't, you know, all the stuff that you mentioned, but is she able to be strong in I guess other ways and still be considered a strong woman?
Yes.
Yes, I think so. Can I give an example of how that happens? It's funny because we keep coming back to that strong black woman thing because it's so intertwined in all of this. But like I have this cycle, all right? This is my theory. So like let's say you're a man and you grew up in like since from the late 60s to like the 80s, okay? So between those times there was so much happening that would have impacted you to be raised by a single mom, right? So let's say you're a boy raised by a single mom, and then as a man, you put your mom on a pedestal because she was awesome, she was so strong. Hey, Zai, she was so awesome, she was so strong. So you put your single mom, on a pedestal. And then now you expect that strength from your spouse, your significant other, because if your mom did it, then she can do it. And so then in your mind, you're expecting and projecting that onto your significant other and not thinking that, again, you didn't see all of the pictures. So you didn't realize that your mom probably wouldn't want to have been so strong if she had a choice. She would have probably preferred to have a support system or a spouse there around to help. And then therefore she would not had to have been so strong, right? So then now you've projected that onto your significant other. And so that puts the expectation on her that she needs to be strong. So then she continues with the cycle of putting her needs last. She holds you down, through all your BS and everybody else's stuff. She holds down the household. She does everything and then puts herself last. So those self-care items just kind of go by the wayside or they disappear altogether. And then that leads to issues with mental health, emotional stability, and then that leads to other problems with health and finances and your relationship and all of that stuff. And then that same self kind of it's really not a flagellation, but the concept that you should sacrifice, then she passes that same thing to her children. Her children are watching her and saying, wow, if I'm a mom, I need to be strong. I need to sacrifice for my family. I need to do these things. And the cycle just keeps going round and round and round,
I'm gonna take
and
that.
that's what's happened to us.
Well,
I'm gonna
well,
take
well.
that.
Let me ask you. Okay, let me get this out right quick, Rashad,
Yeah.
because I think Bridget just said what somebody was asking in the group. Because Tara said holding down our black men in some ways has had a part in holding the black woman down, and I know she's putting a bullseye in the comments because my wife is over here pointing at me saying, "Bingo, bingo."
Well, I'm gonna say this. It's not 19. It's more like 1619, 1492. Okay, that's not something that just recently occurred. It's a part of white supremacy. Flat out, it's a part of a historical. It's a historical. It's a historical issue that has caused the dysfunction of our society and our culture.
Agreed.
So whether that be the slave being in the house or the slave not being in the house, the you know the woman that keeps the master's bed warm at night or whatever like that. Those sacrifices, those constant sacrifices that have had to be made, right, on the part of the black woman, just to see the kids survive or whatever have you. So it's not something that's recent. It's historical trauma.
Agreed.
So
I was
there's
just trying to give kind of
well,
a
yeah,
frame of reference for us in present time, but
yeah.
I
But
But
agree.
I do agree with the historical trauma aspect, and I was going to mention, cultural aspects, from region to region for wherever individuals are from. Being from the Caribbean, i.e. Jamaica, every island people different, but the men, and I have my frame of reference directly would be my mother, and she was a no nonsense person. Okay. My dad, on the other hand, was a little different, you know. Um, Whether he wasn't that base kind of guy, okay. But I think my mother developed the personality that she had because of what she had to go through when she was younger, you know, fending off, you know, male relatives like every other, woman in the family at that time. And just the way her female relatives were towards her, because they're coming from a direct descendants of slavery, you know. And so I'm sure that had a lot to do with how it impacted the way that she developed, um, not just personality, but her attitude to life, the attitude to how she raised kids. Okay, every single one of my siblings, we got horror stories to tell you about how discipline impacted our lives. Where people thought, shit, y'all were abused. I was like, no, we weren't abused. We were just disciplined differently. And I think that in terms of how she dealt with people, people didn't mess with my mother. Okay, and she was not the verbose type of person, but whatever she said went, and as a kid, you didn't go against that. And adults didn't go against that. My mom was the type of person that went up against my dad's boss. Okay, she didn't think nothing about it to do that. We're talking up in his face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is my dad's boss. Somebody that you could get fired, and but she didn't care. It's just like, you are upsetting the balance. You are upsetting the status quo here, and she had to make herself, present. And I think in the Caribbean, women are generally, I didn't hear about the whole angry black woman until I came to the States. Okay. And when you look at how women in the Caribbean approach life, they typically say, look, this is the hand we're dealt, and this is how we gonna get it done. And we gonna have to get it done. Whether they were married, whether they were single, they had to find ways to get it done. So I think a lot of men, even if they were successful, you know, um, being coupled with someone who was probably even more stronger than them, was sometimes, challenging for a lot of men, because they wanted to be the typical traditionalists. And sometimes that only went so far, because, the women basically rule. And unless you were just in a household, where you were totally dependent on your husband or the man in the family, and then they took on subservient roles. And I think I've seen instances where women are strong, but they relinquished the role of the strong person. Even if their husbands weren't strong, they just, say, hey, you the husband, blah blah blah, you the provider. They relinquish that role, to the husband, regardless of how they grew up and stuff like that. So it was, from a cultural standpoint, you had all kinds of different types of families and different types of women that ran households. And but I think you found the strongest of them who are now, we're one of the few Caribbean countries to have had the first female prime minister, one of the first female prime ministers, in the island or in the Caribbean, and all black women, and so you see that growing up. And so you think that most women are like that, and not all the time, all women are like that. So when you grow up and you become men, you know, you sometimes, when you meet other women from other cultures, um, you know, especially here in the States, it's a whole different ballgame, and
And
women will challenge, you know, to because of the way they grew up. And so some men don't take kindly to it.
Mhm.
You know?
And I mean, sometimes women, like I know that like in lots of different situations, I'm seen as like mean or scary or all of these like different um terms that could be negative. I don't take it as negative. I take it as a compliment. But in a lot of situations, women may be seen as that, but the natural resting personality of that woman may not be that, right? So that the persona that I have, that I carry in different aspects. If I'm carrying a persona in business, uh, I think people often look at Black women as one-dimensional, as in, oh, that Black woman over there is a bitch, and she is always a bitch.
Right.
And they feel that we are just that way all the time. Well, no, I'm the MF and CEO of my company. And as CEO of my company, when I say something, I expect that that something will go and that you will not challenge me because I have this role and this position, and I will not be explaining myself today. And that may come off as being bitchy to you, but that
Mhm.
does not mean that when I get off of that role, that I go home and that I'm bitchy to my children.
So walk us
Well,
Bitchy
Terrence,
walk with that real quick,
like the
right?
term.
Yeah, walk with that real quick, because if you notice at the debate, right? And listen, we have rabbit hole, we have gone so deep on this conversation, but if you notice at the debate, they took that to another level. They looked at Kamala
well,
and they analyzed. And go ahead, James. But I want us to talk about the debate a little bit. I want us to continue this conversation, talk about that. But James, jump in there real quick.
well, I was gonna say that's another point. What Karen is talking about is what Nicole just said in the chat. That brings about the other issue, the super fine line between being a strong Black woman versus being the angry Black woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I am a strong Black woman. I get it. Negative or positive, however anybody else on the outside wants to take it. I take it as a compliment for myself. I wear it proudly. That does not mean that I do not take time for self-care. I want to be very clear about that. I am a strong Black woman because I take time for self-care. I can enjoy the title because I take time for self-care. But I want to be able to. I want that when I pass this on to my daughters. We were talking about the cycle. I mean, y'all know Kirsten. And if you were privileged enough to read what she wrote on Chad's page to the troll, y'all know that she is not quite,
Yeah,
yeah, they
those,
come
Right.
that's
across.
what's up. Congratulations.
Yeah, good for you.
You ain't
Yeah.
doing nothing if you got no trolls. You
Yeah.
ain't.
So
Yeah.
I would,
But that one dimension is what Chad's talking about with the debate. That
It-
one dimensional thing where we can only be one thing. And it's the
which is what so
they
the one
project.
thing is being the angry Black woman.
Right.
That
So,
is
so
that the one
at
dimension.
any
So
given moment, they're waiting for the angriness to come out because that's all we are. So
Right.
everything we do
so
is
even
analyze.
if that was the case, and so two things: why are we as a people? Why are we the only ones that can see that Black women are not one dimensional? And what the hell is wrong with being angry?
Right. It's not that we don't have reason to be angry because we
Oh,
have hella reason to be
yeah.
angry.
So
Right.
my
But
question is, what is wrong with being angry when you know that there are reasons for you to be? Why can't you express that and
That's a
not
great question.
being as one dimensional?
And
It's a great question.
I'm gonna point this out, okay?
right.
Because they started talking about the angry Black woman and looking at Kamala and the faces that she was making. But let me tell you something. Those faces, they serve us well.
Yes.
when
Yeah.
other mothers have their children going off in stores and throwing tantrums and on the ground
One
and
look.
Yeah, look.
and embarrassing them, you're gonna get one
Right.
look and you
Right.
gonna act right. You know why? Because you know exactly what that look means. You gonna get your little ass up.
Right.
Stop acting a fool. All of the conversation that happens in that facial expression,
Mm-hmm.
and you act right, right? I mean, they talked about Kamala, and they talked, they were like, "Ooh, yeah, Kamala lost points because of her facial expressions and all of that stuff." Let me tell you something. We have had, I have spoken to so many Black women who have had mothers of other races ask us how we get our children to act right without having to beat them, sell them, put them on
Right.
a leash to
Right.
make sure that they do what they want.
Yeah, y'all ain't got time for that.
Like
Y'all ain't got time
funny,
for that shit.
truth be told.
A
Yeah.
well placed pinch and a look.
Right. I
That,
mean, yeah. I mean, my kids are grown and they still know the look. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
I'm
So
like, so how many of us on this panel right now, as kids, got public bus asses? You know, a bus ass in public.
yeah. Yeah. My mom's motto was, wherever you embarrass me, we will share in that embarrassment.
this is a group effort. This is a group.
So
I can say my mom.
it is what it is, you know.
Pulled into the bathroom a couple times.
Yeah, yeah. And my kids know too, you know. But I mean, the problem is that it all ties in together. But that one dimensional, that thing in their mind that allows them to see us as just one thing, is what helps them kind of, in my opinion, it helps them
Lessen the fear. It probably yes.
it helps
Helps you
them
to
kind of
otherness.
Lessen the fear.
right. It helps
It's a
them
part
kind
of the
of
attack.
fester foster that otherness, you know.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so
It's a part of the
look at
attack.
it through
It
the lens
shows
of
their
only
fear.
anger. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to dig more into that, because it's like I was telling my wife, I don't know where we come from. Come from Miami, and the difference between Black folks and white folks a lot of times, and we see it, men and women. Whereas Black men are viewed as aggressive, white men are viewed as ambitious. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Black women be viewed as know-it-all, white women are viewed as intellectual. You know what I'm saying? Black women are gold diggers, white women are princesses. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it's this juxtaposition. You know what I mean? You can only be this. You can
Right.
only be that.
Right.
And what happens is you get a highly qualified, educated, woman like Kamala on the screen, and she started talking to Pence
Yeah.
about history and how the judicial system works.
Mhm.
And white folks are taken aback by that.
Well, I want
How was she able to spar with him? And Pence
Because-
Pence backed down a lot of times, because he said, "Do you really want to go there?" And he backed up. He was like,
So-
"Do I really want to go here?"
Now, what you're saying is correct. And this is where there's nuance, right? This is where intersectionalities come into play. Because when you're talking about multiple identifying marks, so Kamala is both African American and she's Indian and she's a woman, right? There are groups of people that only fall into one of those categories that can have biases for other parts, for other options that fall into her. And so while they may, if you were talking about just women, they would be like, no. But if they're white women and you start talking about her being Black, you see what I'm saying? It's the intersectionalities. That's where the bias is allowed to exist and grow. And that's what you saw after that debate stage that would not have happened if that would have been a white man on that stage.
Mm-hmm. And I think, there is a base, bottom line, foundational, never changes fear, right? When we're talking about all of these things, right? When we're talking about intersectionality and we are talking about a Black woman running as vice president of this country when we are talking about the trope of angry Black woman, right? The base bottom line is this. And I know people say we always come back to that, but it is the underlying foundation of things. There are people in this country that are white that created a system that they want to benefit them. And all of these things that we are talking about, this power that Black women have, the fear that they have of Black women, is there for a reason and by design. This idea that they only see us in a one-dimensional way, I think Black women themselves fight to remember that that is not the case, right? A lot of times when we as Black women are about to go online and we're about to post something, we're like, oh, I don't really know if I should post that because people are going to think I'm such and such. They're going to think I'm to this or to that. I've got this persona that I am, you know what I'm saying, in order to move ahead. I'm a professional woman. I can't put that up there. I got business with this person and with that person. And so I think a lot of times we have to remind ourselves that that we aren't one dimensional, that there is that intersectionality. But the fear of the power of Black women is also that Black women have been holding up those things that Black men could not over these many years, right? The system that has created Black men that Black men are broken. One of the things that Kirsten said that y'all couldn't hear is she was talking about Black boys and them doing interviews with Black boys about them not dating black girls, why they don't want to date Black girls.
Talk about it, Chris.
Yeah, we want to hear from Kristen.
Talk about it.
You guys are talking.
You guys get close to the mic, girl.
Yeah, come closer. We can't hear you.
She said, I am yelling.
Come closer.
All right.
Let mom back up and you come closer.
All right.
She's soft spoken.
I just find it weird how when you guys were talking before, you guys were saying how you like strong Black women, but then like these days, the Black boys don't date Black girls because of that reason, because we're too overpowering and sassy and angry all the time and like this and that. So I just found it weird how things have shifted over to them not dating us for that same reason. So.
Well, Christian, I want to say that because they raised soft. Basically, that's because they've been raised softly.
But I don't think that that's new. I think that there's always been a duality where men want our strength, but then resent us for it. I think that that's been the case. So the patriarchy was designed for women to rely on men financially and otherwise. And then when we decided that, you know what, we can be breadwinners too, we can go out there and do things as well, then men started to feel intimidated by the fact that we actually can do it. And then they got upset. So like, if you think back to the 80s, the whole, you know, what have you done for me lately kind of movement, right? Where women went into the workforce in droves and started to make money. And then men started to be like, well, these independent bitches, they just, you know, they don't need a man. And, you know, so it's like, you want us to be strong, but then when we show the full power of that strength, then you back off and get intimidated. But I think that there's a way that we can raise our boys to not even have that dynamic, where they can understand that their strength can come also from allowing their women to shine at the same time, you know. And while we're at it, I'm going to say something a little controversial. So when do we talk about the role that Black men have played in the way that white women and white people see us? Where do we talk about how the misogyny that has become mainstream in our music and our culture and the way that we depict Black women, where's the accountability from our Black men to change that, so that they're helping to build what we already know we are, but helping us project it out there instead of tearing us down. Where do we talk about that in the barbershop?
Fellas, I'm gonna tell us, we are actually doing the right thing right now, discussing and having intelligent Black women show. We are taking steps. I don't know about the rest of them.
Well, more so, man. Like this, you can't put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, right? And on all honesty, and it kind of pisses me off. That we only have such a short time to talk about this, but all these things we talk about tend to be from historical traumas. Okay.
That's what I was saying.
So this isn't something. Back in the 80s, there was now it's the Beehive, right, with Beyonce. Back in the 80s, it was like Salt and Pepper, Queen Latifah.
Be easy on the Beehive. You might want to go to City Girls. You might want to call it City Girls. You might want to leave the Beehive alone.
Whatever, dude. There's always been something to project that. Hell, in the 1800s, it was Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. It's always been there, but we as a Black community have always been so divided.
Right? So Bridget, in the same light, in the same token, if we are to be, we need to be more responsible in what we're projecting and what we're saying, is okay for, how we conduct ourselves and how we represent ourselves to women, whether it's through music, song, business and all that good stuff. The other side of that, women also have some responsibility in what they are accepting of, because as much as they are putting out all this misogynistic stuff and how they behave, there are women who accept it and think that it's okay, because in their mind, to them, that's a strong man.
Right. So that's the programming, right?
Yeah.
It's the cycle, right? So it's the same way that you grew up understanding what a man should and shouldn't do. And then it became up to you when you got older to decide if those rules really applied to you or didn't, what part of it you're going to add to the rules, detract from the rules. It's just a cycle. It's programming, and I think what's happening, what's so great about Kirsten's generation is that the younger people are hell bent on questioning these rules, these cycles, the programming. They're hell bent on taking the programming and saying, to hell with this. I don't care about the programming. This is the reality. Why should we accept this programming? And that's what's so strong about their generation,
if this was a fight, young people their whole attitude is, I'm gonna see you on sight.
Right.
They coming with them hands.
Right. They don't care about the tradition of it, where we keep doing things over and over again because that's just the way it's always been. And they're like, fuck that. We're just gonna, why does it have to be that way? Yeah. And they start to just kind of, but I think that it's part of the programming. It's part of the marketing. It's part of the whole sexist, misogynist, racist cycle.
But when we think about, so we had this huge conversation about WAP, about the song and the video. We had this huge conversation about it because it disturbed the shit out of me. And it disturbed me because, what Chad was saying is, it's freedom of speech. It is, you know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that like, it was like what everybody was saying. Isn't that like a woman's prerogative, and she's finding her freedom and she's using her body and she's being who she wants to be. And my thing was, it is fine for a woman to use her freedom and use her body and do whatever it is that she wants to do with it. I think it's a very personal. I think it's a very personal choice. I think when we start to get into conversations around what about telling other people what they should do with themselves and their body, I think we start to end up in issues and problems. I think where I had an issue is here you have the glorification of a lifestyle that
Claudianas.
you're here we have like this glorification of a lifestyle that is being presented to young people and presented to the public in a way that is like, this is the glorified standard. And if you're going to do that, right, and if you're gonna market it like that, I think that there should be some responsibility behind that, right? This lifestyle that is, you know, what you said, Irie, about women accepting men and boys, the, you know, with what they're bringing. I think the conversations to be had are for those of us who know better, to be like, yeah, okay, so normalizing this is not really what we want to do, right? This whole conversation about Cardi B and Offset, and them, you know, on again, off again relationship and marriage. They're out there like, ooh, money, you know, just give me the dollars and the diamonds and all that stuff. But they're still searching for love, and they still want the relationship and the fairy tale and all of that. And we are still playing into, to your point, Rashad, this ideal that was created for Black people since way back when, because the point,
You're shucking and jabbing with $1
the
million
point of
contract.
all of
That's it.
this
You're just
shucking and
shucking and
jiving
jabbing.
and all of that stuff, the point of this was still to break down Black families, because our ancestors, okay, lived a certain way, okay? They believed in it takes a village to raise a child. We lived on cooperative economics. We lived on, you know what I'm saying? There was a certain way that we were doing life, and it was very successful before we were stolen and taken and brought over here. And when you look at the Willie Lynch letters, and you look at the way that it has been crafted to break up families, okay, it is by design that Black men are held down, killed, not given jobs, corralled. It is by design. It is by design that women, that they keep welfare the way that it is, because the strongest power in this country is a Black couple. The strongest power currently, and what they fear, is a Black woman. But the reason why they fear Black women is because black women are holding down what they are trying to break down. And we are holding down what they're trying to break down until men come around and realize that you don't need to be alone out there hoeing. You need to be finding your woman that you can build a legacy with, because the legacy is what they've been after this entire time. So they fear Black women, and they tell us that we're angry, and they try to make us believe that we're angry and that we're broken, because they know that a good Black woman can find a Black man that may or may not be where he needs to be. And when that Black woman loves on that Black man, what is created is a Black family. And it'll be a family that cannot be broken. It'll be a family that does not live according to the Willie Lynch letters. It'll be a family that they have been trying to tear apart and break down since the beginning of time. So these other women that are out here that see a married man and want that married man, not because they want him, but because they want the position of the woman, these other women are falling into, again, the entire system that was created to break down Black families. The power in our ancestry was in our tribes, and it was in our family units, and it was in the way that we raised children. And that's why we had gold, and we had silver, and we had health, and we had strength. That's why we had it,
Well,
because
they
it's
were, they were definitely
a relationship.
successful in breaking that strength when they broke up the American Black family by sending so many Black men to jail. I mean, that they were very successful in doing that. So I think now we're like on the, I don't want, I was about to say on the back end, but it's not really on the back end. it's just the way it has evolved and progressed, and we're now trying to claw our way out of that, to bring back, the family unit. When I see and videos and stuff, especially, chef prepared meals, and I see the individuals gathering around to say grace, or to see, I'll cook for families, and I see them actually going to the table to actually eat. And there are times when I don't know why it amazes me, or why I'm struck by it, but I was, you kind of led to believe that that was just not anymore, where everybody come in and take their plate and gone, somebody sitting out by the TV. But when you see structures like that, especially from younger people, it makes me feel more than just hopeful that it hasn't been totally eroded, the family unit.
Yeah, I'm gonna circle back around and get back to Kristen. So those boys are just that, they're boys. People. It takes time for people to grow. You have to understand that even though youth have always helped to push a movement, that movement has always been grounded by the knowledge and the generations before them. Because you don't get to 60, 70, 80 years old and not know what you're doing. It just don't happen that way, right? So, I mean, um, people in their teenage years and young adults, they behave as young adults do. They're rebellious. They're trying to find their way. They listen to the music and whatever it is at their time, right? Whatever it was at that time, that's what they're doing. It just happens to be that right now, Black folks is listening to whoever Easy or whatever, as opposed to NWA or Truck Berry or
Right.
whoever else. So it's not a big deal. Yeah, whatever the hell.
I mean, it's pervasive right now too. So like the music that they're listening to now, I mean, we all know on this call, they call us old heads and all of that, but we understand what music used to be, and the fact that at any given point on any radio station, you could find a variety of different messages, some about sex, some about love, some about power, some about hate, some about, but right now the younger people, the music that they're listening to is just has like a handful of themes, and they they just happen to be really, really negative, very pervasive themes. And so even the way our young boys are looking at our what are going to be Black women, the way, the lens that they're looking at them through
but that's
right now is different, I think.
I can't even give us a pass on that, because those Black folks have always led the way in music, right? We all since the inception of the radio. Elvis was stealing Black folks songs. Dolly Parton stealing Black folks songs and just remixing it for white folks. This has always been the evolution. So now we're at a point where hip hop, the next evolution in Black music, has become a global affair, which means it's a money maker. There's a whole industry behind that. Who controls your distribution? Who's controlling the radio stations? All these things are still headed by white folks who want to see Black people in a certain way. In order to become a musician, you have to accept some of these things, or not, right? You gotta find a balance. But that's it. Music is a business. The way kids are acting, right? Because they're kids and they really haven't been groomed. They're acting as like music is real life, like somebody who's watching TV all of a sudden want to become Black Panther, and Chad Bosman was just playing. He was just acting that somebody want to go jump out there, put on a cat suit, and want to climb on cars. That shit don't happen like that, right? But we have to, parents, or as community elders say, look, pimping, you ain't just jumping on no car like that. That shit ain't gonna work. All right. So that's we gotta reel
You
that
said,
shit in as adults and say, look, man, I understand what you're doing, but it ain't finna work like that. And here's why.
and
Right?
that's where we need our that is where we as powerful Black women need our Black men, right?
Right.
We need our Black men to go do exactly what you just said, Rashad. We, because I'm raising a powerful Black woman, right? We as her parents are ensuring that she understands what that means, not in the sort of one-sided way that I had to learn about self-care, and that it was okay, and it's okay to be multidimensional, and it's okay to cry today and scream tomorrow, and so we're definitely raising her to be able to inhabit the fullness of herself and her power. We need Black men to go out there and to talk to Black boys at every opportunity, because I want her to date. I want her to find relationships that are meaningful. I want her to be able to have conversations with young boys that will match her, you know what I mean? And so that is where we could use Black men, because right now there ain't, I don't know where, it ain't gonna be at school she gonna find nobody, not at the school she, you know what I mean, like not at the school she's at, and I don't want her to lower her standards.
Yeah, I mean it's a real challenge, because like you said, we're trying, a lot of us women are trying to undo, not undo the damage, but we're trying to train our daughters differently than we were trained. So we're trying to set them up for success, so that they don't have that step behind that we had to come into in our middle age. I'm teaching my daughters about self-care, and I'm teaching them the mistakes that I made in showing this constant sacrifice, and all the things that I'm learning now in my middle ages, I'm trying to teach my 20+ year olds how to do. So we're trying to raise these girls to understand that their standards need to be higher, et cetera, et cetera. So we need boys and men to start stepping up with the boys. We need you all to take the reins and showing boys not to harass us, not to take our sexuality for granted, not to disrespect us, not to objectify us. Teach them that we're smart, and that song on the radio about hoes and tricks and whatever, that's just a little bebop song. That's not real. Like
real.
You said, Superman ain't real. So yeah, it's fine to bump to in the club, but that's not real. I mean, when I had the conversation with my kids about porn, and about how like real women don't look like that. Okay. Real women have pubic hair, and real women have stretch marks, and real women may have lumps and bumps, like to separate the reality from the fiction. That's what we need Black men to do. I mean, while we're holding you all down, it's frustrating as a woman that if you get enough of us together in a room, Black women, whoever, any kind of women, we all have stories about sexual impropriety. We all have stories about men who didn't behave in a manner that they should have, whatever extreme that may be in degrees, right? But yet all the men we know don't know anybody like that. They don't know anyone who is a molester, or who is who harasses women, or it's so frustrating sometimes to be in this and walking in this experience as a woman, and men being completely oblivious. So I'm not projecting on everybody. I'm just saying in general, there's this kind of disconnect, I think, happening. And I think that Kirsten's generation can benefit from us all saying, look, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. Yeah. Black women, we're going to do this. Black men, we're going to do this. We're going to be a team together to have to build the next generation of cohesive folks who are all on the same page and that can reproduce and recreate the next, stronger iteration of us. You know what I mean? And that was a little bit of a ramble, but
No, I agree with you on a lot of points. It's for, I'd say, Kirsten talked about you like you're in third person, but this generation, this group of 18, 19, that group of high school students, y'all actually getting the good stuff right now. Y'all getting all the labor, all the shit we went through to be able to go out and protest and do all the stuff you're doing. We would have got shot, lynched, drugged, beat, broke. You know what I mean? So there are examples now. There's a lot of examples. There should be no reason why a young Black man only thinks of football or basketball or music, right? There's no reason for that. There's no reason a young Black woman should only think of, hey, I want to be a Cardi B or something like that. When you have multiple Black women as senators and congresswomen and Oprah and all of these different things, there's plenty enough icons and people for us to model ourselves on now, even more so. Business. When me and Chad was coming up, we lived in DC, and the only Black businessman we knew was Bob Johnson, BET. You know what I mean? There's plenty of people. As parents, we got to hold ourselves accountable as men and women. You know what I mean? We got to straight up. We just got to hold ourselves accountable, no matter where you're from, whether that's Caribbean or America or wherever. We got to hold ourselves accountable. Look, you can't do that. Girl or whatever. I understand. You want to be tough. Put on a business suit. You can't walk around. Stuff like that. You gotta. We have to get back to those core values.
I want to bring us back to the topic because we've kind of sidetracked, but it's been a really healthy sidetrack, right? And that's what we do on the bridge. We're going to give you the historical perspective, the current perspective. We're going to talk about stuff that makes you uncomfortable and stuff that also makes you grow. And we're going to call a spade a spade. And I think one of the spades we need to call out has to do with ageism. So I want to say, and Chris, I want you to really, this is a lob to you, this is alley-oop right here. From my perspective, I was taught to dress for a job. I was taught to show up a certain way. I was taught to do things. And I think that is starting to become more of a remnant of our age because, I don't think that we have fully acknowledged that there are new ways that the world has literally changed. And there are new ways to do things. And Black women, facts are, Black women are everywhere in society to the point that if they snap their fingers and formed up in formation, if they really came together, they could shut this whole shit down. And so I wanna bring that up, and that's why I wanted to lob this one to Chris because you're hearing us talk, but I think a lot of what we're saying has the lens of our age on it. How does that sound to you? Have things changed? I mean, what's going on? How do you feel as a young adult here in this room and with this topic?
I think, things have changed. I think.
Can y'all hear her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think things have changed, and I think you guys are coming from a perspective of being, older. I don't want to older. Old. So
we ain't that old.
No. But I think, things aren't the same as they were when you guys were in your prime.
How are they different?
Well, like I said, the boys who don't they're dating white girls because of whatever reason, because we're too ghetto or loud, or. But I also think that now Black girls have like shifted, not all of them, but have shifted into like relying on, you know, their sexuality to get these men, because they only date them if, you know, they're sexual and fun, and, you know, it's what the song says, so I want a girl like that. And they don't date like a strong Black woman for being a strong Black woman, but they date her for what she can give them.
I don't think that that's any different. I just
Yeah,
think that that's bingo.
that's been
I think that
Feels
it's
All
about
right.
that maturity.
I would say, Christian, that
How much? Well,
That
I
ain't
would
true.
say that
yeah.
in the aspect that they're acting more white, because the Becky's already been like that for the most part. They all already been free and wild like that. So now the Black girls are acting the way the white girls are acting.
because they're going to have less. There's less consequences. We can have a whole talk on values and stuff like that, but like, you know, black girl get pregnant, about ruin your life forever. You know, in some circumstances, you
But
know,
as things are changing, whether you know from as it's skewed to a younger person's perspective,
mhm,
younger people are still products and byproducts of people like ourselves. We are their parents. So if we aren't the ones who are instilling at least some traditional values, that everything hasn't just gone to hell in a handbasket. We still have some responsibilities. So I mean, I'm sure Bridget, I'm sure Chad, I don't know how old your kids are, Rashad and James, but you have some dude that show up at your house, even though it's accepted by the younger generation in how they dress. I'm sure you're gonna be like that scene in Bad Boys, you know, you know, you
They don't even bring them. They don't even they know.
know, I
It was
mean, I
worse,
know you're not gonna,
it was worse than Bad
stand
Boys.
for some dude coming up to the house, with his pants down by his ankles,
listen,
what up, Miss Bridget? Yo, you know,
Hey, Irie, I can tell you this.
It was worse than Bad Boys.
When he came, he had to deal with me and my brother.
mm,
And the dog.
And the dog that was sitting behind him growling.
It was worse.
that we was constantly talking to him like, nah, calm down. We weren't talking to him. We were talking to the dog. Sit.
yeah. But that's something that
you
doesn't
look
change,
like you're 30.
you know. It's them youthful hormones to be kicking in,
Right.
you know.
But you understand, but
I
you
mean,
understand
I do think that
what I'm saying, though.
they have access to sex more explicitly at an earlier age than we ever did, and so I also think that plays a part in it as well. So
Right.
the reality of sex versus the over hyper marketed ability to access porn and all of that and get that, which is not real. They're using that as their baseline as what to expect from these women as well,
There was stuff.
On to you, Rashad.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry,
I'll
Jake.
just agree.
So I wanted to go back to what you said about how Black girls are now acting more white. I think that it might be flipped, because a lot of white girls are now trying to emulate being Black, like in the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they do everything. And so a Black boy will go and date a white girl like that, who is trying to be Black, but then won't go and date a Black girl and still shame her for being that way.
Right.
Kanye?
I
No? Okay. Never mind.
agree with you, Christian, but
Absolutely.
it's a flip flop. They're acting more Black, and then you have some of the Black girls acting more white.
Yeah.
It's the same, but at the same thing, at the same time, they're still being promiscuous. Both of them are being, I can't even say the word, being sexual like they're white. Either way, she might be acting black, but she doing all them things that the white girl's been taught to do from a young age.
Mhm.
How to keep a man, this is what you do, and you got to do these things.
See, it could be just me, but I don't think that that's new. I mean, that was my experience in high school as well. So especially like in like the late 80s, 90s, when the black was the thing to be, okay, and white people running around trying to learn how to rap and trying to dress what they thought was black, and just trying to just completely appropriate our hip hop, that whole wanting our culture but not wanting us kind of thing. They want the trappings of us.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the insecurity of black people, women, men who want the access and freedom that white people have, but still want to represent, still want to keep the trappings of our culture while at the same time benefiting from what they conceive to be the benefits of being white.
That's what I'm gonna say. I don't think it's new.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just you're just going through the high school version of shut up and dribble. That that's all it is, and it's something that all of us, I would dare to say, all of us have experienced on some level or another. All you got to do is focus on, and I didn't believe my mama when she said it. Just focus on being the best person you can be.
You
all
did
that,
your mama
all that shit will work itself out. Trust me, it will.
Yeah.
Trust me. Trust your mama, daddy, it'll work itself out.
So the question is this: if we have been living the same, if we've been living the same bad cycle, generation after generation, if Kirsten believes the cycle to be new, but it's actually not new, how do we ensure that her daughter is not sitting on a podcast with her saying, here's
and you.
Well, there's this.
You, Kirsten, and you, and Chad.
There's this. We didn't have this, right? So it wasn't documented, right? Documentation, telling our own narratives, that is the single most important thing. That is another part, you touched on about knowing, that's another reason why Black women are America's greatest fear, because Black women are the documentarians for the family. They're going to tell you that your uncle was great. They're going to tell you that your auntie work over at that school and you need to go see her. They're going, you know what I'm saying? Black women document stuff. That's why telling a story, sharing our narrative, controlling that is so important. So what we're doing here, so important, babe. That's why they're not going to have all of the same struggles, because there's probably hundreds of people like us right now having similar conversations, and that will be preserved not just today but forever, in perpetuity.
Intergenerational conversations.
Yeah,
and that goes back to when we had the show about voting, and understanding the perspective of the younger person's ideals and ideas. We can't ignore what's being seen and what's being said through their eyes. So just like how we have to, the older generation have to share their expertise and knowledge to the younger generation. If it comes to voting, it's the same way it comes to, the perspective of life. Because as much as things change, as much as we like it, things still stay the same. Okay, there's not much change. It just seems different because in the bubble that most of the young generation lives in, there's nothing that's seen outside of that. They're like you said, they're only fixated or interested in what they see and what is relevant to them. The things that are outside of that are still relevant, because the way children are brought up, things haven't changed that much. Kids are still brought up in relative traditional ways. You know, whether you're black, well, mostly if you're black. You know, outside of that, you know, yeah, things haven't really changed that much.
Yeah,
I
unfortunately.
hope we answered your question, Kirsten.
Betty hoped that they answered your question. And I'm sure she knows that whenever she does start dating,
Oh, she on lockdown.
And then he would go down like, you see,
That will be all right there to question him.
I was
Hey, y'all already know.
Yeah.
Y'all already know.
How old is you? Motherfucker, you look 30.
You look 30. Go ahead.
I'm gonna try to keep the dog at home, baby. I'm gonna try to
16.
keep the dog at home.
Oh boy, I already done told her he gonna have to take a quick jab. Whoever I'm dead ass serious, they gonna have to take a jab. If you can't take a punch from me, how I know you can protect my daughter when you out in public? I'm shit.
I think he's serious.
Hey, I swear to God, I tell you, my daughter's harder than her boyfriend.
See, that's
Hey.
that's what happened with these skinny jeans and all of that. That's what happened.
It squeezes the strength out of him.
I'm sure she could shoot dead center at 100 yards too. So shoot.
Oh, word. Oh my goodness.
Hey, Irie, we was already talking about going to the range, making sure you know how to.
There you go. He be like, damn, man, I gotta clean my sneakers.
I actually, James, I hit up your boy for the class, the training class, the weapons class. Me and my wife went today. James is good. Yeah. Good dude. Good dude. Yeah.
So a friend of mine, I'm talking to a friend of mine, you know, through text, and she was saying that, you know, that black women are actually loved for who they are, even if it's a small group. But I don't think it's a small group when it comes to black women and loving themselves. I think, you know, and it's not a monolithic thing either. But I think the group of, you know, women, and I think the thing that I love, and it's not, you don't just find it just in black women now, is that women, I think across the board, are really coalescing to be more unified when it comes to women, you know, in how they share things. Women share differently than men. And that's just a given. That's just how it's been, it seems. And I think, you know, kudos to the groups of women who are getting together, sharing and uplifting and bringing, you know, from the bottom up, and, you know, accepting and celebrating women, you know. And I think men are I think starting to slowly embrace that a little bit. And I think I wish we could celebrate and embrace it even more, you know, where we can not feel any way, you know, shape about it by telling a brother, yo, I love you. You know what I'm saying? You know, and if you're able to do that with other men and not feel that you're slighted, that someone's gonna, you know, thinking that you're gay or blah blah, whatever it is, but to embrace men, you know, as a brother, you know, and love them like a brother and uplift them, you know, that will help us, I think, you know, how we disseminate, you know, love to our kids, love, you know, to our male kids. And that, I think, in turn will put them on a different path in how they learn how to love their black women. Because I think most younger black men in this country, I don't think have learned how to love black women. And whether that's generational, whether that's cultural, whether that's, you know, by way of trauma, we have not learned, one, we haven't learned how to love ourselves. And I think two, it makes it even that much more difficult to learn how to love black women.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's a building process. It's
Definitely.
like you said, it's all of the and above, Irie. It's all of the and above.
Yeah, well,
Check
you
that
know, yeah, we
box
gotta make
that.
changes. We gotta make
Already.
changes if we gotta make headway. You
Yeah.
know, we can't keep relying on the status quo. You know,
Yeah.
we gotta make changes on ourselves individually, and you know, and how we come together as men. It was a great thing when we started this podcast. You know, this show. You know, it was just the three, four of us, the three of us, that started this thing, and it was started out of a need to communicate because of pandemic. But as we've seen, even though we're isolated or separated from each other, we still have views and ideas that we still like to communicate as men. So if we're able to do that here, we should be able to still do it outside of this medium, you know
Right.
especially when this is blown over. We should now be able to go and not just regroup, but retool, in the flesh. Have these conversations in the flesh. Have more of these conversations, in the flesh. Whether it's a book group, whatever the hell it is, and be able to celebrate ourselves.
What do you think it will take to make that, to bring that concept to more of a mainstream acceptability for Black men? Like what would it take for Black men to, on a whole, accept the concept and make it a norm to just be able to express themselves emotionally to each other? What do you think would be a catalyst for something like that?
Man, if we ever get to the point where we can feel like we're free, I mean, I think Black men are still fighting this uphill battle. I mean, every day a Black man walks out of his door, there's so many things that go through your head, whether it's from law and order, the law and order side, whether it's from your job, discrimination at your job, disrespect at your job, where you're gonna get fired for doing something stupid because you're Black. It's just like being Black is just an indictment, in today's society. You don't have to do nothing wrong, but just be Black. So you
Oh,
walk out that door, and there's so many things that are against you right off the bat. So when you talk about the corporation of units and Black men and Black women together, how we support each other. Yes, takes a good, the support from someone that shares your common beliefs and want to support you. Because I think a lot of us out there think that we are still by ourselves. You know, whether you're married or I think a lot of Black men still think that they're doing it they're out there by themselves.
I,
yeah.
I agree with Irie, and you also have to get past the male ego, putting that aside,
Hmm.
learning that that conversation move things, and from conversation you learn to cooperate with people better.
I think one of the things that was important for us when we started having the conversation just about women and women's power and about patriarchy and how to change it in our household. I think one huge thing that Chad has done that has been super helpful is that he looks at everything uh, as a way to like grow and get better. So like we'll be having a conversation. So sometimes we used to have conversations where I'll say, Chad, I really think that a good idea would be to do A, B, and C. And he would say, nah, I don't know. I mean, I think a good idea maybe instead would be to do A, B, and C. And I'm like, nigga, didn't I just say that? Oh, is that what you said? Yes.
Karen, the language you said it was different than what he speaks.
You phrase it differently.
And that's the
It's
same thing he
Venus
said.
and Mars,
Oh,
Karen.
you
Venus
phrase
and Mars.
what happened, Kendra?
It's Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars.
But I would tell him, I would be like, okay, I gave you that idea. Okay. And one of the big conversations we used to have in the past is we are married and we are husband and wife, and we also happen to be business partners. But just because we are husband and wife doesn't mean that my work product belongs to you.
I mean, technically it does, but still.
Technically
Right.
it does.
Saying that because he's not at home right now. you in guest house, guest quarters.
Good. She can't murder me here. You know?
He still can make you sleep on the couch.
But I mean, technically it does, but I think that men take us for granted.
Yeah, we assume.
In assuming that because we have produced this thing under this one umbrella, that when people talk about it and then they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, how did that come about? You feel free to say, oh yeah, I thought about that in my sleep. I thought it up when, I think the desire for him, number one, to see where he's wrong, the willingness to consider my point of view when I'm telling him, hey, that's actually you usurping something that belongs to me, right? Because just because we're creating something together doesn't mean that that you like take the lead on it. We've had situations where we will walk into a room, and even though he will tell the man that he's talking to that the man needs to talk to me, like they will completely like skip over me and go to him.
Women too.
Oh, women too. Women too. We'll have situations where women will automatically not address me in the room, even though I'm standing next to him, where they will only talk to him like if I don't exist. And so one of the things that we worked on was him deliberately being like, hold on, this is my wife. Or he'll say, hold on, this is my wife and this is her idea. I don't do any of this. It's all her. If you need anything, you need to talk to her. So like those like conscious movements towards acknowledging my input and acknowledging the things that I contribute as a woman, and by using, doing what we want white people to do for Black people, which is use your status, leverage your privilege. He's found like practical ways of leveraging his privilege to make sure that I get the respect that I deserve.
Chad, you need to follow me. I always listen to my wife. I do every brilliant idea she comes up with. Isn't that true, honey?
Yeah.
Kendra?
He is the fact checker.
You know she's real quiet right now, James.
I don't know which wife he's talking about.
Fact check is about to fact check the fact checker.
Oh boy.
Oh my goodness.
So Chad, how do we bring this conversation full circle? Like what did we?
It is it comes back to like a lot of the conversations we have, how multifaceted it is, right?
It really is. It's so deep. There's so many layers and facets to this whole thing, and Karen and I have had these conversations where I'm always like, when do we get to unpack all this psychology?
Never.
Hundreds of years of psychology, because that's where all the answers are, and it's just so difficult. There's so much to unpack as to how we got here, in every aspect of our Black existence. Yes. It's just so much, to unpack.
I meant to say to Chad earlier, it's not so much that we've spiraled down, rabbit holes, is that everything that we're talking about are basically bullet points, right? From the main topic, and these are all topics because we always seem to find a way to bring it back to whatever, but these are all topics that we have to talk about. the subtopics and the subtopics, of that main idea. However, we spiral down, but if it always brings us to points that need to be discussed. Whether they become entire discussions on their own, other subject matters, but it always leads us to think about other things as we are speaking, because as we're speaking, thoughts, ideas are coming to us, right, one after the other. And like you said, we can never have enough time, because there's so much to unpack, there's so much to discuss, and that's why we keep having, every week, there's always, it's layer upon layer.
Mhm. So, I mean,
Can I offer you guys this for the topic of tonight?
Yep.
It comes to me that the topic was the fear of a powerful Black woman. And I think what they most fear is something we talked about earlier is, and Bridget, you said it, everything we've been through, and I said everything and how we still stand. But they also fear that even through all of that, we're able to raise other strong Black men and Black women behind us. Powerful. However that power derives, some of that power may be derived physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength. It's very evident in all the discussion we've had tonight that Black women are powerful in ways that most people can't understand, because we're able to then pass on a little bit of that power to another generation. And we raise powerful children. So therefore, we carry on another generation of powerful men and powerful women that has allowed our race, especially here in America and other places. Let me not leave out other places where, slavery happened. They were able to survive through everything that they went through. That power and that strength allowed them to survive and create a whole generation of people. And I do understand when Karen says that she takes some pride in hearing that she is strong and she has that strength, because that's a little bit of the power that resides in all of us.
Agreed.
You know what? Did y'all watch what you call it? Lovecraft Country? It just came to mind.
Some of it.
All right.
I haven't gone through it all yet.
I don't want to spoil it, but it's really all about Black women. I'm gonna leave it at that. It's really all about Black women. It's great subplots, and there's plots and plots and plots, but it's really good, and all about the power and the strength of Black women, and what y'all go through, but set in the in the 1930s and stuff. Really awesome.
Yeah.
I know we're wrapping up the conversation, but I just have one question for these beautiful Black men on this.
I wasn't there. I didn't do it.
Do you all? I overheard some business folks talking, and I wanted to know what you all think. Do you, as Black men, do you feel that Black women are leaving you behind? Do you feel the fact that we're right now excelling in education, and we're doing this whole empowerment thing, and like we're trying to be advocating out there politically more, and we are making these strides? I mean, do you all feel like you're being left behind? I don't know, Karen, do you think that that's a legitimate question, Karen?
Kirsten and I both think that it's a legitimate question. We actually just said it. It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm being left behind at all. I'm like, shit, let's go.
It's a legitimate question for many people, but it's based on circumstance. And again, if you If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. But that's one of the strengths of Black folks as a whole, and Black women in particular. Like I think I mentioned this before, but in that whole Asian student union that sued Harvard and Yale, um, when they broke down the numbers, they found out that it wasn't Black people, or specifically, it was affecting the enrollments. It was white alumni, men and women. You know, Black women were actually top third of their class coming out of high school, and then graduating from these schools, they're like the top 1/3, right? That's because of all the struggles and the things you got to do. You got to be twice as good just to get in, just to start. You know, whether it's man or woman, right? So, what I think is happening is that history and the focus on and white supremacy's focus on breaking apart the Black family by destroying the Black man is really coming back to bite white folks in their ass. Is pretty much what's happening, and it's allowed, for better or for worse, it's allowed one group of us to be able to succeed, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Not only that, but if we're on the other foot, uh, if it were the reverse, I don't think we would be as successful, simply because men in general don't communicate like that. You know what I mean? So women being able to more fully speak to, their feelings as they navigate the power structure actually benefits us a lot more. You know what I'm saying? It actually benefits Black men a lot more than if we were to continue to bump our head against systems. You know, so I think it's to our benefit.
So here's what here. If I was to answer that just real succinctly and real short, if you as a Black man feel that you're being left behind, looking at, you just have, it's whatever your circumstance is, all you have to do is look in the mirror, because your circumstances are what you either cause them to be. And if you're going to rely on the power of self, we are the only people, you're responsible for everybody's responsible for themselves. And I think we all need to look in the mirror at ourselves as Black men, and to see where we can make positive changes for ourselves. Um, but we have to each, as individuals, look in the mirror and ask ourselves some hard and true questions to ourselves. We can't rely on a Black woman to do that. We can't rely on another person to do that. We have to do that for ourselves. So, some men may feel that way, but look at your circumstances and look in the mirror and ask yourself, how can I change myself, and how can I change my circumstances? We all have that power, and we can't blame somebody else. We can't blame the man. We can't blame the system, or we can't keep blaming the man and keep blaming the system. Because when you look at there are other people who are successful, and people who have risen, like phoenixes, because they said, screw this. I can't keep blaming the system and blaming the man and blaming somebody else. Everybody, I think, that has risen to some form of success probably got up one morning and looked in the mirror and said, fuck it. I gotta make some changes. I gotta make some change to self. Until you change self, ain't nothing that's gonna change.
Kirsten made a really some really great points while she was sitting here, so I wanted you to share them.
I think that the difference between you guys and some other men are that you guys are like adaptable to change and are willing to change for the better, but other men, some men, don't want to generalize, don't want to change because things are working fine for them. So why would they change if it's life is great for them?
That's the same thing.
You've
white
got a
racist.
woman who cooks and cleans and
Does their
does
doctor's
the
appointments
books and
and
yeah.
you know, all they have to do is go to work and come back and dinner will be on the table. Like, why would they change if
Mhm. So I think some men probably feel if they were, let's put it this way, if they were faced with women like us, they may feel like they're being left behind because we're always moving and shaking and doing things. Bridget, like you don't sit still.
Right.
Where you are today is not where you're going to be next year. Greg pretty much knows that that's going to be the case, right? So I don't think that we would be the cup of tea for men like that. But I am grateful for this podcast. I'm grateful for the men that are on this podcast. I'm grateful that y'all started it, that y'all have these conversations, because you're absolutely right. There's so much talk about the power of Black women, and there's almost like this mysticism around it now. It's becoming like this cult, like just like Pulp Fiction type deal. And to be able to have real, full, honest conversations about it and about that power, because there is the other side of that power that is, times when we are sick or times when we are, exhausted, the drain that power has on us as women. I think we never really get an opportunity to talk about that. We also in society talk a lot about the power without talking about how we can share that power. Because just because you have power doesn't necessarily mean that you want it or want it all the time, that there isn't a price to pay. So I'm grateful for these conversations. I would love for the men on this podcast to create a plan or figure out what happens 6 months down the road, a year down the road, how you can expand what you've learned from these many conversations that you have every week, to other men, because I think that what you are gaining, the insight that you're gaining, is super valuable. Ari, when you talked about men and relationships and y'all being able to express that you love one another, hey bro, like I love you. I think that is absolutely huge, because there's so many young men out here, there's so many older men out here that have never really experienced the love of another man, right? And that's even man to son. You know, Zion went up to Chad one day, like he came, he hugged me, he kissed me to tell me goodnight, and then when he walked up to his dad, he was like, "Nah, we're not hugging, dad. We're boys. We don't, we're men. We don't do that." I don't know where he learned it from. You know what I'm saying? But we stopped him in his tracks, like, "Oh, whoa, no, that's not the way that works. That is your father. You are his son. Yes, y'all hug. Yes, you hug and you hold on to each other and you deeply tell each other that you love one another." Um, I think the conversations that you're hearing, that you're learning as men, are so super valuable and should be shared with, not just the younger generation, but with men in general.
Yeah, for most of the guys that that I'm friends with, it's not uncommon now, we're out in the conversation where, a friend will tell me, I love you, bro. or I'll say that, say that too, or I'll say that in response too. But the one and only man, I can say it, that I've ever kissed was my father. And unfortunately for me, it happened when I was leaving the country to migrate to the States. And it was at the airport. And of course, emotion took over. And my dad initiated it first. My dad kissed me, and I kissed him back. And in that moment, you realize, wow, it's okay because that's your father. I'm his son, you know, and you wish you had more time to explore that. And I've come to this country, and you go through all the evolutions and everything that you see and experience, and you see, with other men. I think now you're starting to see different changes. I remember when I first complimented a guy on his shoes, or his suit. you know I can, if you understood what it took to say that, you know and felt confident in saying it without feeling that you're going to be chastised. But just like with everything else, if it becomes practice, if just by you, and then with everybody started doing it, it it becomes a commonality that will be shared, amongst men, that we can, it is okay to do what women do, in some respects, and to embrace that, and to show each other that we love each other, instead of trying to tear each other down, stuff like that. When you see these things come up on social media, tag a brother, tell him that you love him, blah blah blah. Why we have to relegate it to just social media, or a meme or a post? Why can't we do it physically, verbally in front of somebody, or on the phone, or what have you? We shouldn't be hiding behind, the camouflages, that the internet and stuff put up. We should be bold in the way we express ourselves to men, and I think that will probably become easier when we do it. When I told my mom I loved her, I was I was way into my 40s. Like, when and that was because of our relationship change. As an adult, I had let go of the things that I held on to, as a young man growing up, all the resentment and stuff like that, where I was now able to express myself to my mother. I say, yo, end the conversation, and I say, yo, I love you. And then when you say, wow, that feel kind of different. But that feels kind of cool. That feels kind of empowering, that I can actually say that as a man, and say it with conviction, and I think so. We have to get to the point where we can say these things with conviction, and not pussyfoot around, and be afraid to say these things.
And I think you know, whenever we're talking about, whenever we're talking about Black women and the strength and the power of Black women, um, we always revert back to talking about Black men. And I have constantly asked myself the question, are we centering Black women when we talk about Black men? And I want to be clear by saying that, for me, like, this conversation is so important because, again, this strong Black woman, this strong Black woman sentiment, I believe, is because Black women have picked up what has been laid down. And if we are to heal Black women, love Black women, support Black women, I think this understanding, like you said, Irie, about being able to express that love for another man, being able to being able to heal that thing that was broken, right? I think that we will be able to really enhance the power of Black women. I've never felt more powerful than I do right now because I've been able to incorporate a peace and some, like peace and self-care and time for myself. I think a lot of Black women who are out there and they don't feel well and they're carrying around all of these burdens and they're trying to hold things together and fix the world. I think there is a power that is a healthy power. There is a power that is able to be that is able to benefit us holistically. And I think that will come, not saying that every Black woman has to marry a Black man, but saying that when Black men begin to take up their full responsibility, the fullness of themselves, responsibility for children that aren't theirs, to mentor young people, when they start to do that, I think that's when this power that we have as Black women, we're going to be able to set down sometimes, and we'll be able to experience a different level of that power. They're still going to be afraid of us, but then you know what I'm saying, I think we'll be more effective in what we're attempting to do.
Cool beans. So is this where we get to our 30-second wrap up?
You said it.
Yes. This is where we get to our I've been a guest on the show before, so I kind of know the way that it works. Chad stepped away, he'll be back in a second, but I know how it works. So guys go first, right?
But before I wrap
tonight we're gonna make an exception for the rules because the show was about the ladies. So ladies, you go first.
You're on mute, Bridget.
So what am I doing? What's the 30-second wrap up?
Thoughts.
Your closing statements. On
Statements, thoughts. What you want to leave with the audience? Look at me being Chad Cherry.
Final thoughts would be that the original question was, why, what makes us, what are they so afraid of with our power? And I think part of the equation is Black women ourselves, but I think the other part of the equation, which is equally as important, is the power that's unleashed when our men get their full mantle and when they're able to unlock their own power. Those two things put together, I think, is what they fear. I think that, and it should be feared, because when we're working together, when we're equally yoked, and when we both, as two sides of that coin, both have the ability to really get access to everything that we should be getting access to be able to work our own destiny like we're supposed to be able to, and also to be able to validate ourselves. I just think that, I don't know how it works in everyone else's relationship, but my relationship is unstoppable when we're both on the same page, when we're both on the same mindset, and we both have our eyes set on something, and we both are communicating, and we're in sync with each other. It's just, there's no stopping us. And I just think that that's the same thing with our Black men and Black women. But we'll continue to hold you guys down no matter what, because I unfortunately, I think the need will always be there. I think that Black women will always need to kind of hold it down. And we can be hopeful that will change and that we can acquiesce a little bit. But I have a feeling that we're going to be the cornerstone for a while. But I mean, I don't really have a summary or anything like that. I just think that in general, we're powerful because that's what we were made to be as Black women. We are made to be powerful. And so we're coming into the point with our generations that we're starting to understand that it's not just about that internal power that has to be used for things like political gain, economic gain, emotional gain, health gain. All of that has to happen. And I just think that our Black men are reaping the benefit of us coming into that. And I think that you all will continue to benefit from it. So let us shine, and we'll shine on you, and we'll all shine.
I love it. My friend is so smart.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really loved this conversation. So thanks for the invite.
For sure, for sure.
Okay. So I will say I'm not going to repeat anything that that Bridget said. She said it all so beautifully. What I will say is that if you are a Black woman out there who is holding a lot of power, I'm going to remind you to practice self-care. That power is can be draining and can lead to Go ahead. Oh, yeah, and just know that that self-care is important. Think about things that you used to do when you were younger, and try to incorporate some of those things into your life. And know that it's okay to not be one-dimensional. You can be powerful today and be covered, in your closet under a blanket the next day, and that is just as fine and just as powerful. And then for Black men out there, I would say, a part of the conversation that was important is to also practice self-love, but practice love for your fellow Black man as well. Look for opportunities where you can strike down the patriarchy in yourself and in the system around you, ways that you can leverage your power and your strength to open the door for a Black woman. Yeah, I always enjoy the conversation with y'all. I love the level of wisdom and the level of realness, because there's so many podcasts on Facebook and just everywhere else live streaming, and this is truly the only one that I have been on to date where I feel like I can completely be myself, and so thank you for that.
All facts.
Word.
So I think that it was good for me to learn that nothing has changed, even though that is like really bad that nothing has changed. But I think that it's good that you guys brought like the awareness to me that you guys went through the same thing that I'm going through right now. But I think in order to break that cycle, a lot more of you
Old people,
no, but like people,
more mature folks.
like has to bring attention to us younger folks that we're not alone and this is not new. So as cliche as it sounds, like together, that's the only way to get through it, and that's the only way that we're going to completely break the cycle and make sure that my kids and their kids and so like beyond that don't go through the same thing that you went through and I'm going through. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So, fellas, I think we had our wrap ups.
They didn't wrap up.
Oh, y'all didn't wrap up. All right.
You didn't either. You didn't either.
I wrapped up.
Yeah, I see. Your eyes chinky and everything. I'm gonna do my wrap up. First thing, go vote. Second thing, I'm going to vote for the Black woman.
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
Some things like everything we talked about is really about intercommunication. Interconnectivity between ourselves, friends, family members, and being able to really find that that sweet spot, like Karen said, between our personal relationships and the freedom we need to be who we are. You can do that any time of day with any person you come into contact with. So if we continue to have these conversations and continue to build with the people we're closest to, and the people we come in contact with, that's how things will change. I mean, it may take a little bit of doing, but the more intentional we are with that, the the more progress we'll make.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Irie.
Real quickly, something to Christian real quick. You know, I don't know if you have these types of conversations with friends your age, but if you do, have more of them. And I'd say, as you guys are having those conversations, every so often, invite some older head to just, chime in, you know, just just to stay balanced, to hear the other perspective. So you keep understanding where where we seem to come, where we are coming from, just to get that balance. Um, I'm glad that we had this conversation because, it makes me think of my mother for sure. And I know how she raised us and what she had to go through, growing up, and when she got, when, she had my brothers and sisters before me, got married, and had me with my dad. Um, she showed me, the strength of what, not just a woman, but as a black woman, what it entails. And I think we as black men, we need to, I don't care how successful you are, there's always underlying things that we can fix or change. Everybody changes constant. It happens all the time. And we have to be open to change, and understanding how we can embrace, but also to love our black women better, and understanding that strength, as Bridget constantly was saying, that strength is what helps to propel us to heights sometimes that we've never seen. And we have to be open constantly to hearing those ideas, hearing those affirmations, and not think that the woman is trying to subvert or trying to belittle, even though there are women that do that, yes, but to just to rise above that, and keep looking in the mirror, keep understanding that, our circumstances, we can change our circumstances, just like how black women have been able to change their circumstances as well. And vote, and yes, I'm voting for the black woman as well.
All right, my wrap up is simple. We should listen to every point that was made on here tonight. Everyone had their valid points on tonight's show and brought forth some good information. So only thing left to do is say, like everybody else said, go vote. Let's make a change.
Go vote, go vote, go vote.
Kanye.
All
Yeah.
right, Chad, take us home.
So this has been another episode of The Bridge. Tuesday nights, we get real barbershop conversations. Even when we're half awake, we still get it done. I want to thank everybody for being on this, and you absolutely have to rewind and listen to this. I know I will, because I missed some amazing points, but I'm here for it every week. I just want y'all to see y'all back next Tuesday. I want to thank my fabulous guest, Baker, PBCI Incorporated. I want to thank my wife, Karen Cherry, and my daughter, Kirsten, for being on the podcast. As always, got to thank the fellas, man. James, thank you so much, Mr. J. Rashad, Irie. Y'all brothers are amazing. I don't know how you do it. It is way past my damn bedtime. But this is what we do. And the truth must come out. And you got to vote even if you're tired. So go vote, stay up, and I'll see y'all next time, next week, Tuesday night. It's The Bridge.
One thing before I said, when you rewind this, also read the comments because there was a lot of good conversation going in the comments.
Yes. All right. Bless
So
you.
if I come and visit your uncle Chad, and I'm wandering around that house and that piece of art right behind you, no, go the other way, if for some reason I visit and it just happens to miraculously disappear, you don't know nothing about it. I don't know nothing about it. I'm just saying because it's a beautiful piece.
I'm sitting on a throne.
Well, there you go.
Irie, you know this is recorded, right?
No, nothing.
You're incriminating yourself, bro.
It wasn't me. I'm taking Shaggy's. Yeah, it wasn't me.